Hello, everyone, and welcome back to American Ultras Talk. The USMNT just drew Ecuador 1-1 in what was one of, if not the most encouraging performances of the Mauricio Pochettino era. Last camp, we saw a loss against South Korea and then a win against Japan, moving into the three-back that really seemed to spark something for the national team, and we moved back into that today with some pretty solid results. I think that this is probably the only good result that Pochettino has had against a competent team. I mean, you can look at Japan, but that was Japan's entire backups. If you look at their lineup from the one they played against Mexico the game before, it was an entirely rotated starting 11. All their backups were in. Good result, sure, but not against a top quality team. And yes, Ecuador was missing some players. Obviously, Mos Caicedo was not playing. Estupiñán had to go off injured at the end of the first half. But still, this was a very solid team, and especially defensively. So the fact that we were not only able to get a draw, but also break their clean sheet streak that went back to last March, I think is pretty encouraging and actually gives me hope for one of the first times in the Pochettino era for this team moving forward into 2026. So let's just take a look at the first half real quick. I think it was pretty encouraging, honestly. I mean, obviously we went into the breakdown 1-0, but we controlled the game, I thought, in the first half, and we had 66% possession. We had more shots on target, a lot more passes. And yes, this is Ecuador's game plan, we see this a lot actually against the USMNT. Usually it's with smaller CONCACAF teams, but a lot of the times teams will let us have the ball, let us control possession because that's what we want to do. But then the possession doesn't really lead to anything. The team hits us on the counter and we end up trailing. And that is actually what happened in the first half. It's what's happened so many times. We saw it against South Korea as well last window, and it was kind of frustrating because it looked like it would just be more of the same. We created some nice chances, but on the Ecuador goal, Aiden Morris takes a big gamble and misses the interception, leaves Chris Richards one-on-one on an island with Enner Valencia, who had just absolutely cooked him. No help to be found for Miles Robinson or Tim Ream, the center back partners. And it's a really good goal. Matt Fries, I think it also has to be said, I thought he had a pretty solid game, but on that one, his positioning just wasn't very good for that goal. So that's a little bit of a concern as well. But overall, it was, I think, a pretty encouraging first half if you take away the scoreline. Second half was a lot better as well. We created more chances, had, again, the same amount of possession, a lot more than Ecuador did, and we started to look really, really good going forward. Malik Tillman absolutely balled out in the second half, including the assist to Balogun, who was great all game. I think Balogun was probably my man of the match. He was fantastic. Testman was very strong in the midfield. Weah helped create some chances by winning the ball up high up the pitch. And overall, I just thought it was a very solid performance against a very, very strong and compact Ecuador team. And hopefully we see a win against Australia. And I do think if we play as well as we did today, especially if Pulisic is healthy from the start, then we will beat Australia. But now let's just jump into some player ratings for the guys that play, and we'll start with the goalkeeper, Matt Fries. I'm going to give Matt Fries a 5.5. I think you can argue whether 5 or 6 is average. I think either way, a 5.5 is fair. I think for the goal, like I said, you have to be a little bit better in terms of the positioning. Yes, it was to take nothing away from what Enner Valencia did. He put Chris Richards in a spin cycle and finished very well. But I think if Fries was better positioned, that could have probably been a save. But other than that, I think he was fine. He made 3 saves. And the one moment that stuck out to me in particular was actually in the second half. He had a really impressive claim where a cross came in from the left side from Ecuador, and it was towards the top of the box. Fries laid out. He dived through the air and caught the ball before it could get to an Ecuador player. So that was really impressive to me. I think that was one of the most confident I've seen him commanding his box, which is great to see because I think despite the fact that he solidified himself as the USMNT starter in goal, we still would like to see him continue to improve because I think it has to be said, besides maybe some of the center back spots, that is our weakest position. So anything that we can build on for Matt Fries is a good thing. So he had some nice moments, but ultimately the goal is what mattered more, and I think he could have done better there. So I'll give him a 5.5. Now, moving on to the back three, we'll start with the right center back, Miles Robinson. And before I even give a rating, I just want to say there is no need at all to be wasting caps, let alone even call-ups on Miles Robinson, especially this close to the World Cup. It's just kind of ridiculous to me. I don't think he deserves to even be in the roster, and especially not starting against a high-quality opponent. It just seems like a waste to me, to be honest. And it was a really weird role that he was playing. It's the role that Joe Scally initially had when Pochettino came into the national team. He was playing as a right center back, but he was pushing a lot higher up the pitch than I would have liked to see, especially from a player like Robinson, who is an out-and-out center back. I really don't understand why he was pushing so high up, and it left us vulnerable in transition because to deal with that, we had either Tessman or Morris dropping into his spot to try to collect the ball. Weah was pushing even higher up the pitch, and ultimately, I just don't really understand it tactically. If it was a player who was a little bit better going forward and maybe a little bit quicker, not to say Miles Robinson is slow in terms of center backs, he's actually pretty quick, but I just think it worked a lot better in the second half once Alex Freeman came on. That's a role that I could potentially want to see him playing in going forward, and especially against Australia, I'd much rather see Freeman start in that position than Robinson. I just don't think Robinson was good in general. I'm going to give him a 4. He had, of course, the one yellow card that stopped a counter, but overall, I mean, he just didn't really do much defensive wise, and again, no help to be seen on the goal, although I'll blame that more on Tim Ream because that was more his side. There's no need to see Robinson play Mark McKenzie, play Freeman there, call up Scally, call up George Campbell. Honestly, he's been playing really well at West Brom as a right back, and I think in this back three system, he could really thrive as this right center back in the role that they're playing these right center backs in. That's someone I would like to see, and of course Noah Kai Banks as well. I think we all agree should probably be in camps moving forward, but that's it for Robinson. I just don't think that he should be in the team, to be honest, and I don't think it was a particularly strong performance either. Now moving on to Chris Richards. I'm going to give him a 5. I think overall it was a pretty strong performance that we've been accustomed to see from Chris Richards. He won all of his aerials, 5 for 5. As you see, he's a man mountain in the air, really good in that department of the field. But at the end of the day, he just has to do better with the goal. Yes, he has no help. He's left one-on-one with a very dangerous player, but at the end of the day, it's 35-year-old Enner Valencia. If this was prime Enner Valencia, I could probably give him a pass, but it's 35-year-old Enner Valencia who's now playing in Liga MX for Pachuca. You are basically in your prime, 25-year-old center back excelling at the top league in the world. You just have to be doing better. Again, take nothing away from Valencia. I've said that before. It was a great run and finish from him, but I just expect more from Chris Richards. If it was someone like Robinson or Ream in that position, I would have probably expected him to get cooked. But Richards, I expect a little bit more out of, so I'll dock him a full point and a half for that. Otherwise, I thought he was fine. He commanded the back line like he always does. It just would have liked to seen better from him on the goal. And that's kind of becoming a theme for him, for Freese, you're going to see for Aiden Morris. That's just something I would have liked to have seen better on. Now, the left center back, Tim Ream. And I know he's the captain, but I think we've seen from the attitude that Tim Ream conveys, especially in interviews, he's not captain material. Quite frankly, we don't really have many players who are captain material, and that's kind of a problem. Chris Richards, I think, might be one of those guys who is. Tyler Adams, of course, isn't in the camp because him and his wife are expecting a baby. Huge congratulations to them. They might have already had it by now. I don't even know, but huge congrats to them, adding to the family. Always an amazing moment. Anthony Robinson, of course, had to miss the game due to injury. I think he is more of a captain than Tim Ream is, despite the age. So ultimately, I just think we have surpassed the need for Tim Ream in the national team, and especially if we're going to play in this back three. Max Arfston, whether he's playing left back or left wing back, and you can argue all you want about how effective he is going forward, he does not track back, which is a huge problem when Tim Ream, now as a left center back at 38 years of age and severely on the decline in his career, is left kind of stranded dealing with a right winger with pretty much no help. And that's why I just think Mark McKenzie would be so much better in the position. Even CCV, who I don't rate really at all. I think that's become clear if you've been watching the channel for a while. I think CCV is severely overhyped. I think he's very error prone. But even him, I think, could do better in this position just because Tim Ream's lack of pace hurts us so much in transition. And we saw that he was nowhere to be seen for the goal that they scored. And I just ultimately don't think that having him starting is going to be a good thing for the USMNT, especially going against even higher quality opponents in the World Cup. I mean, we already saw it against Ecuador. We see it pretty much every game now. I mean, it's just they hit us in transition so perfectly, and there's nothing we can really do about it because this guy is one of our center backs. I mean, his passing has continued to be pretty solid. He reads the game well, but ultimately the lack of pace does catch up with him, and I think we're finally at the point where Tim Ream is fully on the decline. We just don't really need him in the lineup, and he's one of the weak points. I mean, you saw the midfield played pretty well. The attack created a lot of chances, but the defense was the weak point, and part of that is because of Robinson and Ream being in the starting lineup. I'm going to give Tim Ream a 4 as well. Now, moving on to the wingbacks, we'll start with the right wingback, Tim Weah, and I'm going to give him a 6.5. I think he was pretty solid. He did well on the defensive side of the ball. He won most of his duels. He even got a tackle in there, and attacking-wise, his pressing ability, and not just him, I mean the entire team, but it allowed him to win the ball back high up the pitch in multiple moments, most notably for the goal that we scored. Weah wins the ball up high, immediately plays it to Tessman. Tessman does really well on the edge of the box to wait until the perfect moment to slip Malik Tillman through, so he was onside. He drew both of the defenders to him. Tillman's wide open. He plays a cross in. Balogun scores. Great counter-attacking play from the USMNT. Excellent goal, and it started with Tim Weah winning the ball high up the pitch because of the press. That wasn't the only time that happened. It happened 2 or 3 more times as well. And ultimately, I just think that this is a role that he can really excel in. Now, when Serginho Dest is back from injury, it does bring up the question, who should be playing, Weah or Dest? Can we fit both of them in? Maybe Weah pushes up to play in one of those right forward / right attacking midfielder roles that we saw McKennie in today. Maybe we see him there and Dest on the right wing back. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But for now, with Dest out, I think this position is Weah's for the taking, and he was pretty solid in the role. So I'll give him a 6.5. Pretty solid performance from him. Now for the left wing back, Max Arfsten, I'm going to give him a 6. I think he was pretty solid, honestly. And I think that the defensive lapses that we've seen from him so much in the U.S. men's national team uniform can really be removed when he is playing higher up the pitch in this wingback role. And again, this is one of the main complaints that the fan base had about Arfsten when he was playing so much over the Gold Cup is because we were playing a back 4 and he was the out-and-out left back. And when he's the left back and Ream is the center back in a back 2 on the left side, that is a recipe for disaster on the defensive side. You're just asking to get cooked because Arfsten doesn't track back, Ream is too slow and too old, and we saw that so many times over the summer. Now with Arfsten pushing higher up the pitch in the left wing-back role, I still have concerns about Ream being the left center back there, but it's better, and it helps Arfsten utilize his strengths more. It is still pretty funny, I will admit, seeing whenever he gets the ball, he tries to do step overs. It's basically the only thing that he ever tries to do. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just honestly funny to see. It's like he thinks he's young Cristiano Ronaldo at Manchester United, which he definitely is not. But I will say, I'll hold my hands up. He was pretty solid and created some decent chances as well. Particularly towards the end of the game, he had some nice through balls to Haji Wright. Once Haji came off the bench for Balogun to play the striker position, slipped him through once or twice. Haji was pretty wasteful, but I mean, getting into those spaces in general is an encouraging sign. And I think that Arfsten's strengths were a lot more on display than his weaknesses, which is always a good thing when you have a player like that who does have some things to offer in the attack, but also is so vulnerable in the defense. I think that the game plan utilized him well. Would I still love to see Robinson over him? Yes. Would I still like to even see some other players like John Tolkien get called up and maybe play over him? Yes. But Arfsten played today, and I think he was pretty solid. So I'll give him a 6, maybe 6.5. Now moving into the double pivot, and I'll start with Aidan Morris because I think he was the one who was probably more involved than Tessman, both in good ways and bad ways. He was flying all over the pitch, and I tweeted this out mid-game. I said that you can tell that Aidan Morris, by watching him play, I mean, he was basically everywhere. I mean, he was running around, filling in for Robinson at the right center back role when he was pushing higher up the pitch, going to collect the ball all over from the right side to the left side, deeper down the pitch, a little bit higher up the pitch. You could tell that he was desperately trying to make an impact, and maybe that was because he felt bad that his gamble pretty much cost us the goal. Obviously it's not entirely his fault. Richards is to blame a little bit, Ream's to blame a little bit Freeze is to blame a little bit, but ultimately that play all started with Morris gambling and it not paying off. But I think that overall, if you took that mistake out, he played really, really well. There was a couple other times where he had some bad giveaways, and I think that's something that he needs to work on. But for a player who hasn't been called up since Pochettino's very first camp, which was a full year ago, I think he looked pretty solid, and I think it has to be said this was his best performance in a U.S. shirt. Before, honestly, I couldn't point to a single time where he played well, and I still think that we could have seen better from him on the night, but I think that this was his best performance, and if he keeps getting chances, I have faith in him to continue to get better. I would probably give him a 6.5, honestly, but I'm going to dock it to a 5.5 because of that big mistake for the goal. But despite the low-ish rating, I think he played okay, and I think that there are some encouraging things we can build on from that. Now, his partner, Tanner Tessman, I think was one of the best players, despite going a little bit under the radar. I think a lot of people were critical of his first half because they didn't see much involvement. But the thing about Tessman is he's not a flashy player. I mean, sometimes he can be because he has a very, very good long ball and shot on him. So if he gets into the right opportunities, I mean, we've seen him score already a couple goals for Lyon this season, and his long balls are really, really solid. Today, they weren't so much on display as in the past, but when those aspects shine, he can be flashy, but generally he's kind of just your traditional 6. He sits in the right areas, he drops deep, picks up the ball, distributes well, gets out of tight spaces really well, which is particularly impressive considering how big he is. He's 6'3". He's built, I mean, like a football player, honestly. And I mean, we saw before he ended up playing professional soccer, he was committed to Clemson to be a kicker. I think he's even built more like a football player than even a kicker would be. But it's just so impressive to me, and I mean, it's honestly satisfying because we have been on the Tanner Tessman hype train since he was at Venezia. Yuri in particular, I'll admit, since he is a Venezia fan and watches all the matches. But I think it was evident to see the last season and a half that he had there with Venezia that he had really taken a step forward and his talent was finally showing. He was the best midfielder of all of Serie B. People didn't seem to notice, whether it's because they couldn't watch the games because it was at such a low level, or they just didn't believe it because, again, Serie B, it's a low level. He took a big jump to Ligue 1 last season, had some ups and downs, but now this season he has emerged as one of the key players in Lyon and maybe now one of the key players in the USMNT. It's not obviously Tyler Adams' fault at all that he's not here. Johnny Cardoso always seems to get injured when the international break is happening, and even when he's not, he plays horribly. There is a spot to be taken for Tanner Tessman as the starting 6. He took Adams' number for this camp, and I think he has at least given himself a say in taking Adams' position in the starting lineup. I would like to see him start next to Weston McKennie in the double pivot against Australia because I'd be very curious to see how that was. And of course, I haven't even mentioned, I mentioned it before, but not when talking about Tessman. He had such a crucial impact in the goal. I'm going to give Tessman a 7. I'll give him a 7. I think he was very good. Of course, there was 1 or 2 long balls that he kind of just played it to nobody. But other than that, he was so solid in his role, quietly becoming one of the most underrated and underappreciated players in the entire pool. And I would love to see him keep getting opportunities with the national team. So great game from him. Now moving on to the 2 attacking midfielders. I'll start on the right side with Weston McKennie. I thought he was okay. I'm going to give Weston McKennie a 6. I think that there were some moments, especially in the first half, that he was pretty solid, pretty bright. And again, he's playing out of position, but he plays out of position so much that is there even such thing as playing out of position for him? I mean, we've seen him play throughout his entire career. He has played every single position on the pitch besides goalkeeper. And even in the past couple seasons with Juventus, he plays as a right back, a left back, a right wing back, left wing back. He plays as more of a deeper midfielder. He plays as a box to box. He plays more attacking as a 10. He even plays wing. Like it's ridiculous how versatile he is. And it's showing every time he gets called up into the USMNT, he's playing a different role. That being said, someone made a good point that I think it is pretty valid. If he can play left wing back for Juventus, why can't he play left wing back for the USMNT? I think it would have been cool to see maybe Haji Wright or Pulisic, if healthy, even Zendejas, push up into that right attacking midfielder role and play McKennie as a left wing back. It would be an obvious improvement on Arfston. Again, not like Arfston played badly against Ecuador, but I think it's just something that maybe we can look to experiment if Jedi is continues to deal with these injury problems that are starting to worry me. I'll be honest, he's been out for a little bit too long, and it's starting to worry me a little bit in terms of his overall status. That's just one solution that I think could be experimented with. In the meantime, you could also try maybe Sergiño Dest if he's healthy at left wing back, keep Tim Weah at right wing back, because those two seem to be perfect in those roles. But back to McKennie, I think he was pretty solid in the first half, had some nice combination play. Second half, he was a little bit more quiet and ultimately was the first one to be subbed out along with Miles Robinson. Luna came into his role, didn't really do too much, to be honest, but I'm going to give McKennie a 6. I think he was solid, and I think that it's so important that now, I mean, you saw his post-game interview. He said that this is the first time where he's, or last summer was the first time where he was comfortable taking off his shirt in public, which was pretty funny, maybe a little bit concerning, but it just shows that he's finally putting in the work. He finally has a dietitian, and he's staying fit, in shape, and I think we could tell based on the performance. I'd like to see a little bit better from him, but again, I think we could see that if he's in the double pivot in his most natural position alongside Tanner Tessman next game. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing that against Australia. Now, Malik Tillman, I think, was absolutely excellent in the left attacking position. I think he was really, really good, created the majority of the chances we had, including, of course, getting the assist on the goal. I'm going to give him a 7.5. I thought he was fantastic. You could tell that he's just so confident now in the national team shirt, and it's so nice to see, because in the start of his USMNT career, I think so many people will remember he was really bad. I mean, he was invisible. If you look to that game against Mexico at the start of Poch's tenure, I'm just pulling up the stats now. He started in that game as an attacking midfielder alongside Aronson. He completed 3 passes in that game in 63 minutes. To fast forward from then to now, it's night and day how much of a different player he is. It seems like he's finally reached his club form for the national team, and it's so crucial to see, because he has now reached a point where if you asked after Copa America, is this guy a player for the national team? There's probably a lot of people who said no, he shouldn't get called up, and definitely not even anyone considering him as a starter. But now I think he's locked himself into the starting lineup, and it's just incredible to see, because having a player like him has helped us out so much. He that one moment where he got the ball, it was late in the second half, had a nice little dribble move, and then played a Travella through ball to Alex Freeman. That just showed his confidence to me. I think that was the one moment that it just exhibited the most, and ultimately I just love to see these kind of performances from him. He was always popping up in the right areas, making things happen, so good in combination play. There were some times where him, Weah, and Balogun were combining so excellently, and it was some of the best football I've seen us play under Pochettino. Just a joy to watch Malik Tillman, and I hope we continue to see these kind of performances. If not for the next guy, he would have been my man of the match. And the next guy, of course, Fuller and Balogun, our striker, our solidified number 9. If there was even any debate before, I think that's been put to bed. What a performance from him, especially going against one of the best center backs, especially one of the best young center backs in the entire world. Willian Pacho, he won everything with PSG last season. He's been so incredible for them, for club and for country. A huge part of why Ecuador are so defensively solid. And Balogun really won the matchup. Honestly, I think for a player who's been struggling for game time at Monaco, and he's in and out of the starting lineup, he's only got 1 goal this season so far. I think it was so incredible to see him really show up against such a high quality back line, and it really just gives me encouragement. Obviously, we have Ricardo Pepi, who's been injured for a while now, and hopefully we see him get back into the USMNT sooner rather than later. I'd love to see him in the November camp, because, I mean, we've experimented with Josh Sargent. Clearly that doesn't work. We've experimented with Ajimong. He spends more time on the ground than he does standing. And now Haji Wright came off the bench, and I think that could be a solid solution. But I think, given the lack of winger depth, I'd like to see Haji Wright play more in those roles that we saw Tillman and McKennie in today. Usually it's Weah and Pulisic. I'd like to see Haji come off the bench for those positions, but I think that could be how we best utilize the roster. Him and Zendejas maybe as the backup wingers, and we see Haji Wright come in as Ricardo Pepi, of course, when everyone's healthy, come in as the backup striker. But Balogun, out and out starter. What a performance from him. He held the ball up very well when he got it. keeping possession for us. Like I said, he was great in a combination play, always popping up into good areas. Had one chance, I think it was in the first half, where he had a shot from the edge of the box that would have been absolute worldy if it had gone in, and it was very, very close, just over the goal. And then, of course, the goal, making no mistake about it, beating his marker to the ball from Tillman and finishing off the post and in. Great performance. I'm going to give him, usually I wouldn't do this. I'll give him a 7.6 just because I think I don't know if it was, you know what? No, I'll give him an 8. I think it was an incredible, incredible performance from him. And if we have performances from Balogun like that going forward, we could create some real noise in the World Cup. And that's the first time that under Pochettino that I have been this confident about not just a player playing the striker position, but honestly the team as a whole. So I'll give Balogun an 8. Talking about the subs, I'll give Freeman a 6. I'll give him a 6.5, actually. I think he was very effective in his role when he came on, and it's something that intrigues me because over the summer, one complaint that I really had with Alex Freeman was that playing as a right back in a back four, he was being asked to mainly sit back and defend so that Arston could push up the pitch. I didn't like that because Freeman offers so much going forward. It's one of the biggest strengths in his game. But now, despite being technically a right center back, we see in this role, it's allowing him more freedom in the attacking phase of the game, especially since we did have 2 6s today. One of them could sit back and kind of be a placeholder for him. So he can be a lot more involved in the attack, and I think it's something that I would like to see going forward, especially over Miles Robinson. I'd like to see him start in that role against Australia, and I'm really intrigued to see what he could unlock in that position. Diego Luna, I'll just give him a 6. I don't think he was too involved, and I think his role with the national team has diminished since the summer. Obviously, he was such a key player in the Gold Cup. Him and Tillman were probably the 2 standouts alongside Chris Richards, but now he seems to have faded to be a bench player. The first one off the bench, but really didn't create too much. I mean, he kept the ball. He did, I guess, what was asked of him. He had one shot that he really should have done better on, to be honest. Malik Tillman had a really, really nice ball to him from the wide area. Just one of many chances that Tillman created on the night. The Luna really should have done better then. His shot was pretty tame on the floor to the keeper, but at least he got in the area, I guess. I'd like to see more from him going forward if he does continue to get these opportunities off the bench. Maybe I would like to see Aronson over him off the bench against Australia, just see somebody different and see what he can offer. For the rest of the subs, McKenzie, Roldan, and Pulisic came on in the 73rd. Pulisic, I think, was honestly pretty quiet. I mean, every time he got the ball, he kept it. He had one nice run where he beat a defender or two, but ultimately it ended up going out for a goal kick. I just think that you can't really judge Pulisic off this game. He barely played, and I think if we do see him in the starting lineup, hopefully he's fit enough for that against Australia. I'm looking forward to seeing the form that he's been in at Milan translate to the national team level. For McKenzie, the very first time he got the ball, he gave it away in a pretty dangerous position, but after that, he was fantastic in the build-up, playing great balls through to the midfield, line-breaking passes, and ultimately, that is kind of the McKenzie story. He always has 1 or 2 pretty shaky moments that don't necessarily inspire confidence. But when you look at the alternative options, Tim Ream, Miles Robinson, CCV, I would just much rather see Mark McKenzie playing in that left center back spot. I would like to see him starting there against Australia. Christian Roldan, we have surpassed the need for Christian Roldan. If he really needs to be in camp as a vibes guy, fine, but he cannot be coming off the bench because he's just not that good of a player. James Sands got called up, a very well-deserved call-up, and I would have liked to see him come off the bench instead of Roldan. So that's one of the very few disappointments that I have with the performance yesterday. And then Haji Wright, like I said, he got into some very nice areas. Was he wasteful? Yes, but the fact that he got into so many good, encouraging areas in just 10 minutes on the pitch, I'm pretty happy with that. So that's overall what I thought about the performance, all the individual players. Let me know in the comments, what did you think of the result? And more importantly, the performance from the entire national team as a whole and some of the individual players against a very strong, especially defensively solid Ecuador team. Who are the standouts? Who are the disappointments? And what do you want to see against Australia? Because that is a pretty big game that I think we can definitely be looking to win, even though they just beat Canada on the same night that we just drew Ecuador. I think that the goal for that game should be winning. We should probably try out a few different players in a few different positions. I'd like to see Freeman at right center back. I'd like to see McKenzie at left center back. I'd like to see McKennie next to Tanner Tessman in the double pivot. And of course, I'd like to see Pulisic if he's healthy. That's the big one. But let me know what you think of the result. Any key things that stood out to you. And until next time, we will see you until after the Australia game.